From the streets of London to the cathedrals of Orleans, a great king will rise to lead his nation to victory after years of shameful defeat. But who was this legendary warrior and what conflict did he fight in? Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're off to medieval Europe to look at the 100 Years' War. Make sure to stay till the end where we'll find out if the Black Prince could live up to his name. The 100 Years' War was one of the most important conflicts in European history, lasting from 1337 to 1453. Despite its length, it wasn't fought continuously, and there were long periods of peace between battles. The story of the war is actually much longer than that though. It began with the Battle of Blankenburg in 918, when Charles the Simple, king of West Francia, granted land to the Viking warlord Rollo in exchange for his submission. This led to Normandy becoming a duchy within the Frankish kingdom. Over the next 4 centuries, the Dukes of Normandy would build up their power and influence until the English conquered it in 1066. Then they used it as a base to invade and conquer most of northern France. In the early 14th century, the French were ready to take back what they saw as their land. Things came to a head when Philip VI of France claimed the English throne after Edward III died without a direct heir. Edward's son, the Black Prince, was away on campaign in Scotland, and his 12-year-old son, Edward III, was crowned king instead. The French seized on this opportunity and invaded northern England. They took several towns before being defeated at the Battle of Brough in 1346. Not long after, the English took their revenge by invading northern France and winning a decisive victory at the Battle of Crécy in 1346. This battle is where the legend of the war really begins. Crécy was the first major battle to feature longbows as the primary weapon. Longbows were so effective that the English killed around 25,000 French soldiers while only losing 4,000 themselves. The French crown sued for peace, but Edward III refused to make peace unless they recognized him as the true king of France. The French continued to resist, though, and the war dragged on for another 100 years. The next 50 years were known as the period of the 3 royals because 3 kings from each side fought in the war. On the French side, there was King John, the two-faced Charles V, and the captive Charles VI. For the English, there was Edward III, Richard II, and Henry V. This period was also notable for the appearance of Joan of Arc. Joan was a young peasant girl who heard voices telling her to drive the English out of France and put the rightful king, Charles VII, on the throne. She cut her hair and donned male clothing to join the French army. There she rose quickly through the ranks thanks to her courage and determination. She led the French to victory at the Siege of Orleans and became a national hero. Joan was captured by the English in 1430 while defending the city of Compiègne and was burned at the stake in Rouen for heresy the following year. Her execution outraged the French and helped turn the tide of the war against the English. In 1435, Henry VI was crowned King of England. He inherited a massive debt from his father and wanted to end the war so he could focus on domestic issues. In 1453, a treaty was signed that ended the war and gave the English only to small areas of France to keep. Now let's meet some of the people who fought in this long conflict. The first person we'll meet is the man considered by many to be the greatest medieval warrior, King Henry V of England. Henry was only 27 years old when he inherited the throne. He had been prepared for the role since childhood, though, and quickly showed himself to be a capable king and military leader. His first major battle was the Siege of Harfleur. Harfleur was a port city that fell into English hands early in the war. By 1415, the French had laid siege to the town and Henry knew he had to relieve it or lose an important supply base. With just 9,000 men, he set out to raise the siege. Along the way, he picked up reinforcements and supplies, which allowed him to win the Battle of Agincourt. At Agincourt, the English faced an army twice their size. The English archers fired a volley that killed and wounded many knights and nobles, including the French Dauphin. This made it hard for the French to mount an effective attack, and they lost around 40,000 men compared to only 1,000 English casualties. Soon after, Henry forced the French to sign the Treaty of Troyes, which named him the heir to the French throne. He went on to conquer much of northern France, including the city of Paris. Unfortunately, Henry's health started to decline, and he died in 1422. He was succeeded by his son, Henry VI, who was only 9 months old at the time. The next person we'll meet is King Charles V of France. Charles became king in 1364 at the age of 13. His father, King John, was declared insane after he murdered 4 courtiers. Early in his reign, Charles had to deal with the English invasion of 1345. He relied heavily on his cousin, Queen Isabella of England, for military advice. But in 1350, Charles turned against her and executed her along with 6 of her accomplices. After this, his mental state started to decline, and he suffered from violent mood swings. He became increasingly irresponsible and even started having affairs with men. In 1364, the nobility forced Charles to marry Joanna of Bourbon. When Charles resisted, they declared him insane again and put him in a tower for the rest of his life. The third person we'll meet is Joan of Arc, a young French peasant girl who played a key role in turning the tide of the war. Joan was born in 1412 to a poor family. As a young girl, she heard voices telling her to drive the English out of France. She joined the French army and soon proved herself to be brave and disciplined. In 1429, she led the French to victory at the Siege of Orleans. This was a turning point in the war and helped to boost French morale. Sadly, Joan was captured by the English in 1430 and burned at the stake for heresy the following year. The fourth person we'll meet is Sir Thomas Erpingham. Erpingham was an English knight who served under King Henry V during the Siege of Harfleur and the Battle of Agincourt. He played a key role in both battles and was one of the few nobles who survived Agincourt. Erpingham was a wealthy landowner who lived in a large house called Herstmonceux Castle. He was well respected in his community and was knighted by Henry V after the Siege of Harfleur. Sadly, Erpingham died in 1441 while fighting in France. He was killed in an ambush by French troops and was buried in a church in Kent. Finally, we'll meet Sir John Fastolf, a famous medieval warrior and one of the commanders of the English forces at the Battle of Agincourt. Fastolf was an experienced soldier who had fought in many battles across Europe. He was known for his bravery and skill in combat and was highly respected by his peers. However, Falstaff was also a controversial figure. He was accused of cowardice and treachery on several occasions and was involved in several duels and brawls. Despite his flaws, Falstaff was a skilled military commander and played an important role in several English victories during the 100 Years' War. One of his most famous feats was his defense of the town of Harfleur in 1415. While the town was under siege by the English, Falstaff and his men held their ground and repelled numerous attacks. This bought time for King Henry V to arrive with reinforcements and lift the siege. Falstaff was also present at the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, where the English army was outnumbered 2-1. He played a key role in the battle and helped to secure a decisive English victory. However, Falstaff's behavior during the battle was called into question by his contemporary, Sir John Manning, who accused him of abandoning his post and fleeing during the thickest of the fight. Despite this criticism, Falstaff continued to serve in the English army and played a role in several other important battles during the 100 Years' War. He died in 1435. Having lived a long and eventful life, if you enjoyed this video, check out my others on medieval warfare. Thanks for watching.